Rev up your engines!
Sloppy Joe. Scotty, I'm looking for a second car. Should I buy a new or used one? I don't know a lot about working on cars. A lot of places are offering 0% financing on new cars. What do you think? One, I always believe in buying used cars. I've had customers that were foolish enough to buy a new car, decide they didn't like it, trade it in, and they got about 50% of what they paid for the vehicle. So, you're losing too much money. But when it says zero financing, realize that that's just a scam. Even if they do give it to you, a lot of time it'll say for qualified buyers. But even if you qualify, that's on whatever price they decide to say the car is. And if you look at the list price of a modern day car, nobody but a fool pays that list price. You guys get it for thousands and thousands less. So if you're paying list price, you're getting 0% financing, you'd probably be better off paying interest and get a better price than paying all that extra money for a vehicle that they've set the price in stone and they're just giving you less financing on it. That's not something that you want to do. If you can finance it somewhere else, or even better, if you can find a good used car and pay cash for it, then you've got no financing and you own it. You don't have to worry about anything. That's really the absolute best way to go when you're buying a car, bar none. David Haas says, Scotty, when are you going to buy a new used car? I'll never buy a new car because it's a waste of money. I'll buy a used car when it's got maybe 8 or 10 years old. If it's a Toyota, say it's got 70, 80,000 miles, it can still have 80% of its lifespan. Well, I'd rather pay 20 to 30% of the original sticker with 80% of the lifespan than 100% of a new car, because the price is just too high. But as for, am I going to get a new used car? I don't have any reason to. I got the Celica that runs like a clock, the Matrix that runs like a clock, my wife's got the Lexus that runs like a clock. And we generally fly everywhere on vacation anyway. And then we rent a car or use Uber when we're on vacation in big cities. So we really don't go any cross-country traveling. We do that with planes. Good Mafia say, hi, Scotty, I'm thinking about buying a first-generation Chevy Silverado Sierra extended cab. Are they reliable and dependable? How many miles are reasonable? In a price range. Thank you. Okay. First generation Silverados were pretty well made vehicles. The only thing is they're pretty old. If you're buying something that old, there's all kinds of problems they could have. I personally wouldn't buy any vehicle like that if you're paying any amount of money that's got more than maybe 150,000 miles on it, because then you're going to have to worry about transmissions going out, engines and all that stuff. But again, it depends on what you're paying. If you're buying one, they were pretty well built, and say you got to put 1,800 into a rebuilt transmission, well, heck, go ahead. The engine's in good shape. I mean, go ahead. Those are vehicles that you can keep fixing and fixing and fixing. They're nothing like the later model GM cars and trucks that have problems up the wazoo. The old ones were pretty reliable. So, I mean, if you want to find one that's in decent shape and maybe put some money into it, go right ahead, or find one that somebody took really good care of it. I wouldn't buy a new one, but those old ones, the first generation ones, were pretty well made. Jason Bourne says, Scotty, I replaced the alternator in my ILS 250. Now the auto goes up and down when I put a full load on. Could it be the alternator? I changed or something else. It's a CarQuest alternator and belt. Double check your work area first. That's just something that you have to do, because if it didn't do it before and it does it now, you could have knocked off a vacuum line, got a wire loose or something. You want to really check that. CarQuest, hey, I have questionable quality with some of their stuff. So, first thing I do is take it to a guy like me and load test that alternator. And if they load test it, I can load test an alternator in 2 minutes. And if I load test and say the alternator's no good, then the alternator's good, no good. And I would just take it back to them and say, give me my money back and go get a quality one. One that's an actual Nippon Denso rebuilt and not some CarQuest one. You want quality with an alternator because, even though it's going to cost you more, it's really important for modern computer-run cars to have a good supply of electricity. Aldo says, my speedometer starts to work, but then it stops. If it comes and it goes, generally, it's a problem in the electronics. When I was younger, all cars were simple. All they had was a speedometer cable that went from the transmission to the speedometer head in the dash, and the cable would break, or the dash unit was breaking. It was really easy to check. You just have to pull the cable out of the dash, drive around, put your finger on it. If it still spins, the cable's okay, and then it's the dash unit. But today, they're all electronic, and they've been that way in most cars since maybe 94, so it's been a long time. There's speed sensors on them. A lot of times, the speed sensors start to go bad, and then you just replace them. Usually they don't cost 40, 50 bucks. They just bolt in and out. But if it's not that, then it's generally the head unit in your dash, and those are pretty expensive. If that's the case, a lot of guys will just go to a junkyard and buy the whole dash, used one. If it's an older car for maybe 50, 60 bucks, put the whole thing, plug it in, and away you go. Sensor's the easiest thing to try out first though. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.